Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome to those of you who are new. Welcome back to those of you seasoned veterans of what we do around here. What we do around here is bring about conversations of a psychological, mental health, emotional health paradigm. We do that as often as we can, usually several times per week, and we continue to do that as often as is allowable with my ever-changing schedule. In any event, this is kind of signs of trauma, and if you're kind of hanging out or living within your trauma, it can be super challenging and difficult. So, if you are dealing with trauma recovery, and every person deals with it to some degree differently, and also every person, and this is a very difficult thing because a lot of people don't teach this, every person has a trauma break point. Each individual has a limit to the amount of trauma they can take in their life, and so if you've reached your break point, it can mean that it is extremely difficult, if not feeling impossible, to kind of overcome that or deal with that in a meaningful way and figure out how to get things going. The first thing that will be a sign if you're dealing with that would be not really living, just existing. And a lot of people are going through a zombified way of being. That is to say, they're kind of dealing with only the emotions of the things they have to do versus the things they get to do. A person who's living sees opportunity. A person who is existing just sees obligation. And so when a person is dealing with only kind of that trauma response, they're only going to deal with the emotion of obligation. The next thing is they don't necessarily feel like they have a place to release the negative emotions related to previous negative traumatic events. And so sometimes it can take several months or several years, even in some really extreme cases, for a person to feel like they can sort of release their trauma bonding or their trauma core. And a lot of times we live in a society that doesn't exactly give people enough time or energy or ability to do that effectively, appropriately, or in accordance with what is needed. And so that can become super painful and very difficult because at the end of the day, if an individual doesn't feel like they have the ability to be honest or feel like they have a proper way to emotionally, mentally, spiritually release whatever they have going on inside them or the thing that they haven't yet quite overcome yet, ultimately that can hold them back from experiencing a life filled with joy, filled with happiness, filled with any level of peace, and ultimately that becomes super problematic as well. Understanding and identifying ways to, at some level, deal with whatever is in front of a person can also become extremely painful, especially if an individual doesn't understand how to do that. The next thing when dealing with trauma to consider is the reliving or the kind of flashback or repetitive rumination that comes with trauma. For people that have been through trauma and not released it yet or not found a way to grieve it properly so that they can move forward, the reliving can happen sometimes several times per day, several times per week, even in really extreme cases, almost continually, or it feels continual anyway. And so it's like happening for that individual almost, it feels as though several times per hour, and that can become really, really difficult. The fear of not being able to respond to emotions successfully or appropriately is another factor that people that have been through a lot of trauma deal with. That is to say, they feel as though their mind, body, spirit is going to be negatively affected by not knowing how to step forward and or how to, not feel in control of their own experience and um, feeling badly about oneself can lead to more and more of that. The more rumination of not knowing how to deal with emotions can lead to um, even a higher level of struggle, higher level of hardship, and ultimately a lot of pain, a lot of trauma and difficulty from there. The inability to get on a schedule of regulation from, how to eat, how to sleep, where to gain a certain level of peace is also a super big struggle for individuals who have um, kind of getting things going into a negative direction. That is to say, finding a way to release the emotion and also avoid it coming out in the body, in the mind, on the way at which people interact with each other can be super painful, especially for individuals who feel like they have given more of themselves than they're comfortable giving in order to keep things going on a continual basis. So hopefully this is helpful. Keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Till next time, everybody.